I'm pleased to be joined again by attorney Joseph McBride. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Good afternoon, Jason. Good to be back. How are you today?
I'm well. I was just watching this interview with CNN's highly unprofessional John Avlon, who, why don't you tell everybody what happened? This was just this morning.
Yeah, so I went on CNN this morning to discuss one of the sentences that took place yesterday. Paul Hodgkins, one of the January 6th protesters, took a plea to a felony. It's the first felony plea in this case. He received 8 months. So I went on with the expectation that we would be discussing, that and other January 6th group-related things, and we did discuss those things. But when pressed on other issues, I was, of course, denied the right to speak, and I was spoken over, and in a fashion that just isn't commiserate with earnest journalism, I would call it. So there was a dust up. We got in a little argument, and that's okay. These things happen. I make myself available to CNN from time to time because I do believe that just because people watch CNN or MSNBC, it doesn't mean that they are beyond the pale in terms of reach. There are good, bad, wonderful, and crazy people on all sides of the aisle. And I hope to reach, the people who are reasonable on both sides. But unfortunately, nothing was really reasonable about the way things went down today.
I agree with that. I mean, again, it's important for somebody in your position. We've got some clicking happening. Hopefully that goes away. It's important for somebody in your position to engage with the opposition. And frankly, this is what you do as an attorney. You're always entering this argumentation process with somebody who totally disagrees with you, and your role is to persuade them with facts, right?
Of course, it's my role to persuade them with facts and the law applied to fact. And it's my job to put myself in the shoes of my client and to zealously advocate for my clients. In this particular instance, my client is Richard Barnett. I am doing my very best to zealously and vigorously advocate for him. I think that sometimes people juxtapose, or certainly the gentleman who interviewed me today, he made statements about questions about my beliefs, my politics, and that's improper. It's improper from a journalist. It's improper if a judge does it. It's improper if other opposing counsel sort of says, "Hey, just because you represent person X, this means that you are you're a person X in your personal life. You believe everything they believe. You love everything they love. You hate everything they hate, so on and so forth." So. Oh my God! Excuse me. I apologize. Thank you.
Okay.
So that was unfortunate. That's how you know I'm telling the truth, by the way. So that's unfortunate. I find it comes with the territory sometimes. But when you're in a professional setting, it shouldn't happen. People should know better, and an earnest and honest interviewer should be able to say, "Hey, this is a guy doing his job as an attorney, and I can separate him from his clients." Now, look, I love my client. I'm not saying anything bad about my client. I think he's a great and wonderful man. But that the truth remains nonetheless.
I agree with what you're saying. This guy, John Avlon, who I never heard of before, I suppose that's my issue, but he attempted to sort of pigeonhole you. And he was leading the witness, essentially, with you as the witness. And as you said, your personal disposition in any given fact has no relevance in the criminal defense of Richard Barnett. I do want to remind people to visit the Legal Defense Fund website. They can support your legal defense of Richard Barnett by going to bigobarnett.com. It's very important that people support Richard's defense, because here in the United States, people are considered innocent until it's proven that they're guilty, unless, of course, you're appearing on CNN.
Right. It's very true. And I knew that at times it would be confrontational. I understand that CNN is, their audience, and the people who run the show over there aren't sympathetic to my clients or to other January 6ers. I knew that going in. But when you ask somebody on the show, you owe them you owe them a duty to be able to respond to the questions they're being asked. And when they ask a question of you, you should then, be polite enough to respond back. For instance, I asked Mr. Avlon straight up, are you comfortable? Are you okay with torture? Are you aware that torture is taking place within 5 miles of the White House in Washington, D.C.? This is currently sanctioned by the Biden administration. And are you okay with that? And he didn't want to answer me. And he grinned and he smiled and he smirked and, he did all the stereotypical things that, snarky, condescending liberals will do when they think that they've got you into a corner. But, I wasn't worried about him at all. I was just trying my best to deliver the message, which is, with regard to torture, that it is real, that it is happening. He basically called me a liar, and I told him on the record, I said, hey, listen, be prepared to hold yourself accountable. I'm paraphrasing here, but when the truth comes out about the conditions of confinement, you're going to be dead wrong. This isn't a what if or a maybe or a hey, imagine that. This is a very, very real thing that's happening right now. Jake Lang, I have mentioned him before. He's represented, Jacob Lang is represented by my colleague, Stephen Metcalf. Jacob has been in solitary confinement for months. Again, he's a pretrial detainee, and the law is clear with regard to pretrial detainees. No punishment of any kind is acceptable under the law. Never mind cruel and unusual punishment. And to my point, Jake had been locked up for some time. Jake in solitary. He was finally released the other day. Beard, long hair, looked like a caveman. They brought him back into what we call the general population area, which is essentially a protective custody pod for January 6ers, where they're locked up for 23 hours a day, and which is another form of solitary confinement, by the way, and they get 1 hour of rec time. So when Jake was brought out by the guards, everybody started to cheer. They said, Jake is alive, Jake is well, and he got sort of a hero's welcome because everybody knows what he's been enduring. The guards didn't like that. The guards told all the other, and I have this information from firsthand accounts from other inmates and other detainees and family members. There's a vast network of us who are all connected. And the guards didn't like the fact that Jake was being celebrated. So the guards told everybody that this is against the rules and you need to stop it. These guys have been here for a long time now, and they have a lot of time to read. And one of the things that they have regular access to is that rule book. You better bet your ass that they know it, right? They know that rule book inside and out. So the other January 6th
book is that?
It's a jail sort of rule book that they have to live by, rules that they need to abide by. Huh. And so they know it. The guards know it. They know it. It's a sort of like a battle back and forth with them all the time. So they said basically, there's nowhere in the rule book that says we can't go see Jake, so we're going to go see Jake. So selecting not to engage the broader crowd of people, they went to Jake's cell, opened up Jake's door, maced Jake twice, cuffed him, and then dragged him back to solitary.
Holy cow!
Now,
how is that not torture?
It's torture. Solitary confinement, by definition, is torture. It's accepted by the psychiatric community as torture. It's accepted by the ACLU and other public defense and public defender organizations as torture. It breaks the mind. It breaks the spirit. It takes people and changes them forever in a very bad and negative way. It's deeply traumatic. It's highly unacceptable. It's barbaric. It shouldn't be happening to people who have been convicted of crimes, never mind persons who've only been accused of the crime. Yet it is happening nonetheless. So if you just look at the solitary confinement issue, that meets the claim that I've been saying all along, that torture has been happening. People's reactions are vitriolic. There are a lot of people who don't like what happened on January 6th. They understand their concern. I understand their fear. I understand their apprehension. However, the emotional reaction to say that, oh, because you showed up at January 6th, whether you are a peaceful protester or somebody who showed up to breach the Capitol in militaristic gear with a plan in your hand and conspirators around you, no matter where you fall on that spectrum, you are entitled to the protections of the Constitution, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth Amendment, First Amendment certainly, and no matter what you've done, axe murderer or a jaywalker, if you've merely been accused of a crime, you're not allowed to be punished at all. Never mind solitary, never mind beatings, never mind macings, never mind being denied medical care, never mind being reasonably cut off from reasonable access to your attorneys on a regular basis, never mind the plethora of other divergent and very specific harms that are happening to these detainees on a regular basis. We have been screaming this from the mountaintops for some time. We have the evidence to back it up. We have the witnesses to back it up. We have the records, the journals, the text messages from the detainees I've had to back it up. And CNN wants to say, Mr. Avlon wants to say that I'm lying, that it's not happening. Well, when the truth comes out, I look forward to you holding yourself accountable for coming out on the wrong side of history in this important matter.
Yeah, it really was disgraceful what CNN was saying to you. I mean, according to CNN, what you've just said I agree with. Whenever somebody is accused of a crime, no matter how severe, they need to enjoy due process. Otherwise, we can merely accuse anybody of anything and then they get tortured in the way you're describing Mr. Lang has been. Joe, it causes me to think about something that happened in the recent past, less than a year ago. There were these two attorneys here in New York who are, I think, on video, at least photographed. They've been accused of throwing Molotov cocktails at the police. Certainly sounds a lot worse than walking into the Capitol building and sitting at a desk. Do we know if either of these two have been detained in solitary confinement for 6 months?
No, they were not detained in solitary confinement for 6 months. They were not. As a matter of fact, they were granted bail at some point. When we look at two individuals like this and we say, look, you don't have to approve of what they did. I certainly don't approve of their reprehensible actions of bombing the NYPD. That's ridiculous. It's wrong. But society, the media, and the courts accepted the premise that because these persons, their actions were grounded in the First Amendment, that they should be given some heightened sort of consideration. So you say, wow, people who firebomb an NYPD vehicle, an NYPD cruiser, possibly could cause somebody's death, are being given First Amendment protections because the root causes for them coming out were grounded in protest. Okay, that's a stretch. I don't agree with it, but I'll accept it because I'm for expanding constitutional powers, not inhibiting them. So then when you apply that same logic to people who have done far less violent acts or have been accused of far less egregious acts in relationship to January 6th, you see that the equal treatment under the law is not there. That is because one side of the political spectrum is being targeted by the other. If you are on the left, if you are a member of the radical left, you can do whatever you want to whoever you want. Dress in military gear, come out in black bloc, do whatever it is that you need to do to express yourself, violent or not. But if you do it on the other side, it's a wrap. And, you'll be thrown into the DC gulag for an undetermined amount of time, and God help you.
Yeah. And, I think it goes beyond just political activism. There's such a degree of complicity on the part of CNN. It's almost like they're the marketing department for this. We have this opinion piece which asserts that 8 months in jail was the right call. I heard separately that this individual appealed to the judge asking for no jail time, stating that he was going to lose his job and subsequently lose his home if he goes to jail. The judge didn't seem to care.
No, I guess the judge, didn't care about that stuff. It's unfortunate because these are real people with real lives. Objectively, if you look at the facts of Mr. Paul Hodgkin's case, he is not accused of doing anything violent. He's not accused of breaking or bashing any doors, not to my knowledge. He walked in to the Capitol at some point, ended up in the Senate chamber at some point, which, is like the holy of holies, right? You're inside of the Senate chamber. This is where the magic happens in terms of, the inauguration, certifying the election, and certifying Joe Biden as president. Now, because he was there, he says, I don't want to go to trial. I'm going to take a deal. They're asking for 18 months. I'm going to plead for no jail time. The judge sort of splits the baby and gives him just a little bit less than half. Common. I feel like 18 months is not commiserate with other trespassing sentences. If you look at the Code Pink protesters who showed up to Justice Kavanaugh's certain hearings, confirmation hearings, people broke in, people flopped around on the floor, people pushed people around. Who was sent to jail? Who received 18 months or 8 months or 1 month? Nobody. So there is a double standard here that is the gigantic elephant in the room, is not being spoken about. It's never been this egregious. It's never been this black and white. But they're simply doing it because they can, because they believe that they have the other side of the table figured out in silence. But that is not so. So my message to people who are sympathetic to not the actions of Jen. You don't have to like what Richard Barnett or anybody else did on January 6th. You don't have to agree with it. But we can all agree that the way that these people are being treated, the way that they're being tortured, the way that they're being sentenced, the way that they're being prosecuted is vicious, is unfair, it is totally out of line with past precedent, and it's wrong. Because of that, people of good conscience should speak out.
Well, it's unconstitutional as well. But unfortunately, Joe, I think that people don't agree that this treatment is unfair. We see CNN promoting this, lauding this, laughing about it, posting op-eds about how it was the right decision. And again, I think it goes beyond activism or a political slant. It really is, they have become the marketing department. And there was something in particular that was said during the interview with you this morning that stuck in my brain. Avlon spoke about the big lie. Where did this come from, this phrase, the big lie? It reminds me of like the Big Mac. When I say Big Mac, you know what I'm talking about, because since you and I were both little tiny boys, McDonald's has paid millions and millions of dollars to promote this brand name, the Big Mac, to associate it with advertising and marketing so that you have a certain image in your mind. They typically will show it to you with happy little kids eating beautiful, plump-looking hamburgers, well lit, looks fantastic. If every time you heard about Big Mac, you saw some disgusting person in a pile of garbage eating a horrible thing, you'd have a negative association with it. But I see this term, the big lie, being stated and restated by everybody from Joe Biden to this dope on CNN. If I can, for a moment, let me just play this, Joe, so people can hear exactly how unprofessional, how un-American, how unconstitutional this guy behaved here on CNN.
A federal judge has handed down the first sentencing of a U.S. Capitol rioter charged with a felony. Paul Hodgkins of Florida received an 8-month sentence for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, despite prosecutors' request that he be sentenced to more than twice that time. So could this case factor in the sentencing of other Capitol rioters in the coming months? Joining us now to discuss, Joseph D. McBride, attorney for Richard Bigo Barnett, seen here in a widely circulated image from the January 6th attack, sitting in a chair in House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. Mr. McBride, what's your reaction to yesterday's 8-month sentence? Does that seem fair to you?
I'm not going to get into whether or not it seems fair. Good morning, by the way. What I can say is there appears to be 3 categories of defendants who will be sentenced at this point. You have the misdemeanor trespasser or illegal protester. You have an individual like Mr. Hodgkins who made it into sort of the Senate chamber, into the Holy of Holies during that time, during that sacred event. And then you have people who conspired to be violent and or were violent that day. Obviously, those people have not been sentenced yet. When you look at the sentencing that happened yesterday in light of Richard Barnett, it's not too far of a jump to see that Richard did not make it into the Holy of Holies. He did not make it into the Senate chamber. He was also not violent that day. So in terms of analyzing it where he might come out on this, if an appropriate offer were to be made, it would have to be something in the realm of misdemeanor protest, trespassing with probation, like Ms. Morgan Lloyd was sentenced to, unlike Mr. Hodgkins.
Right.
Definitely
well, obviously, your client did
forward.
not make it into the Senate chamber. He did make it into the Speaker's office, of course. You acknowledge that, because that's just a matter of fact. So let's just talk about one of the judge's rationale, though, if you want to draw a parallel between.
Sorry,
I was just ad-libbing.
Well, it's interesting to comment on this because he has an agenda, clearly. First of all, you're polite. You say good morning to the guy. He's queuing you up to sort of, do whatever it is that he thinks he's going to do. Let me continue because we're getting to some of the really interesting things he says.
In this sentence. She cited specifically the fact that he pled guilty early. He showed sincere remorse and that he recognized that Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States. Has your client expressed remorse? And does he recognize Joe Biden as the legitimate president of the United States?
Sure. Well, obviously, this is an ongoing criminal case, an active criminal case. So I can't get into his state of mind, prior state of mind or current state of mind. What I can say about the situation is that my client believes that his actions were protected by the First Amendment of the United States, that he showed up to peacefully protest, to petition this government for redress, along with throngs of other citizens. We all know what happened
just
that
so I'm
day.
clear, just so I'm clear, are you saying that attacking the Capitol is, according to yourself and your client, an extension of First Amendment rights?
No, I'm saying that there are people who showed up to attack the Capitol, there are people who showed up to protest, and there are people who showed up to protest that got involved with the greater events of that day.
So people can watch that full video on your YouTube channel. You've created a YouTube channel specifically for your law practice. People can find it by searching for Joseph McBride on YouTube. The full interview is there. But I just wanted people to see how John is setting you up there. He's putting words in your mouth. He wants to know if Richard considers Joe Biden the rightful president of the United States. And then immediately after that, he asks if you consider Joe Biden the rightful president. Reminded me of that scene in Superman 2 where General Zod is going around and he wants everybody to kneel before Zod to admit that he's the ruler of the world.
Right. That's a good analogy. It's funny. It's the truth. And my beliefs about anything are of no consequence to him. It's not that I'm ashamed of my beliefs. I'm not. I just refuse to let some, pundit who obviously has an agenda, who's doing the bidding for God knows who, to give him the time of day in a situation like that. Number one. Number two, he disrespects the office of I'm an officer of the court. I am an attorney. And when you disrespect one of us, you disrespect all of us, right? There's a complete lack of respect for the profession and whatever. That's neither here nor there. But then he gets into, they make statements like, are you saying that, whatever he said, insurrection is protected by the First Amendment? And No one ever said that, but there's the gaslighting, right? There's
Well, you had
them,
an excellent
queuing you up.
response. Excuse me for interrupting, but your response was factual. You said nobody has been charged with insurrection. So calling this thing an insurrection, that's like if somebody steals a pack of gum from a convenience store and then you start referring to it as the murder scene.
Right. The armed robbery. Right. Yeah, it's so you have the big lie, which is, like the Big Mac, right? And now you have the insurrection, and these are catchphrases. These are marketing ploys to keep, the person who doesn't want to dig deeper into the issues and to say, oh, the big lie. Oh yeah, I know about that. What did they say on CNN? Oh yeah, that must be true. It's a load of crap. That's what it is. No one has been charged with insurrection. And if you want to say that they've lied, well, let me tell you something right now. That catchphrase cuts both ways depending on what your belief is about what happened on this past presidential election. If you believe that the election was stolen from the American people, then the big lie is the fact that the guy who's in there now shouldn't be. And if you believe that the election was legitimate, then the big lie is the people who think it was stolen, right? That kind of thing cuts both ways. When you look at it objectively, what does it do? It does nothing but try to divide people. It's a divide and conquer strategy. They want to divide every house. They want to divide every workplace. They want to divide every relationship. They want to put people on two sides to ensure that they are fighting so they can go on to continue to increase the strength, size, and scope of their surveillance state, because that is really what this is all about. And just for the record, and just for purposes of YouTube, obviously we mentioned the election, but we're taking no sides here, no sides whatsoever. We're just simply saying that the big lie can cut two ways, depending on how you view it.
And I'm glad you're mentioning that because, Joe, the whole purpose, as I understand it, of the First Amendment and the freedom of speech is to openly and robustly debate these things, however outlandish any particular person might find them to be. We're not threatening anyone. We're not urging anyone to do any criminal acts. We're just debating a matter of fact, and the fact is we've been blocked from doing that by YouTube and big tech. It's a good transition to what I want to talk to now about John Avlon, this pervasive control that big tech has. I didn't even know who this guy was before this morning, but it turns out that prior to being a senior political analyst and anchor at CNN, this guy was the editor-in-chief and the managing director of the Daily Beast. Now, it's interesting to note that the Daily Beast is owned by Barry Diller's IAC, Interactive Corp. They also own Vimeo, which has previously deleted Crowdsource the Truth entire channels for raising matters that I consider to be covered by the First Amendment. Diller also has Chelsea Clinton on the board of directors of IAC, and independent of anything we're discussing today, Charles Ortel, complex fraud investigator, has alleged, and I follow him in these allegations, that IAC and the von Furstenberg Foundation are engaged in all kinds of financial activity that could rise to the level of criminality. So it's interesting to see how this cabal of wealthy individuals with political influence, they control media. Just saying, ooh, the media is controlled by 6 people, okay, fine. But when we start talking about the individuals that control them and we start to see the tentacles and the fingers on the hands that are trying to manipulate people like you and our ability to defend the First Amendment, I know Crowdsource the Truth viewers know that I feel so strongly about supporting you, Joseph, and Richard Barnett, because I'm not taking a position. I haven't examined all the facts. I just want to make sure that everybody has the right to due process, and I am disgusted. I'm appalled. The fact that these guys would go to jail and receive a punishment that's worse than rapists and murderers before they've even been found to be guilty of anything.
I appreciate the support and the concern. It's wrong, and it needs to stop. I believe, I know, I speak to so many people. all the time about the case and about other constitutional issues that are happening. They are the powers that be, who are currently in control now, are grossly underestimating the resolve of the American people, and they are grossly underestimating the spirit of freedom in this country and the spirit of patriotism and love of country. They are grossly underestimating it. I don't know, why they're underestimating it so much when people have fought and bled in wars for hundreds of years to defend our American way of life. But what I can say is that I don't want to sound too biblical here, but the Democrats and the liberals will not be in power forever. And what do you think it is going to be like when the other side takes charge if the Constitution doesn't prevail? The other side is not going to forget when they are in charge of government, when they are in charge of media. All things in life have a season. Everything swings like a pendulum. And in order to avoid one side going after another, and depending on who's in office and who's utilizing the media propaganda machine at that time to go back and forth for generations, we should recognize that the Constitution was written during the Constitution was drafted and written during times like these, times like these, to get us through days like these, right? And let's just use it. Let's take the wisdom inherent in it, apply it to our current situation, use it as a lamp to light us out of this dark, dark, dark circumstance we find ourselves in, and find our way back to peace. But it doesn't seem like one side wants that, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's extremely unfortunate. One of our viewers here in the comments has just shared something rather surprising with me. I believe that you share my support for former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, although I've been confused by some of the things he's done lately. Turns out John Avlon is a former speechwriter for Rudy Giuliani. That is surprising to learn. John Avlon, former Giuliani staffer, said he was shocked when he found out that federal investigators executed a search warrant against Rudy Giuliani. I wonder what motivates these individuals, what side they're really on. I mean, could he have possibly been this liberal and left-leaning when he was working for Giuliani?
It's possible, and it's also very possible that John Avlon is a good guy who, someone put him up to today, and he accepted the task, and he went in there and did somebody else's bidding, or he could just be a snake in the grass. I don't know. I have learned to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. I truly have. I give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I'm not afraid of a fight. I've been in so many fights in my life. I was a fighter before I became a lawyer, an actual fighter. So, I met some of my best friends in life through fighting. So I take, it's nothing personal. We got in the dust up today, so be it. But who knows? Who knows with Mr. Avlon? A lot of people close to Rudy Giuliani, just like a lot of people close to Donald Trump, pretended to be friends and betrayed these men. So who am I to say? It's strange.
Holy cow.
Only time will tell.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Joe, but we've got so much good information coming from the comments. We should check this, but Eric is telling us that John Avlon is married to Margaret Hoover, who's a Republican and the great-granddaughter of Herbert Hoover. So this is a politically connected guy. See, it's interesting to look beneath the surface and see what's going on with all these different people, where they've been, who they're aligned with.
Sure. So, first assumption, I guess I will call it, is, I'm applying some deductive reasoning here. One would think that, one can easily recognize that there's a split in the Republican Party right now. Right? You have your rhinos and you have your MAGA people, right? And this guy's obviously not a MAGA person, right? And there are people in the Republican Party who absolutely hate the MAGA crowd. They hate Donald Trump. Look no further than Liz Cheney and her cohort of people, and then you have people on the other side. So he very well could be an anti-Trump, civil rights applied to January 6th, establishment Republican who has a bone to pick or has a whatever he wants to do, and that's fine. Look, I don't that's fine. In the end, the truth will prevail. In the end, the remarks that he made today will be shot down. The torture is happening, and we went through the various forms of torture here today. It's happening right now. It's happening on this president's watch, and if he continues to fail to acknowledge it, it will come back to get him. It'll come back to get all of them because torture is evil, and there's karma attached to that.
Absolutely. I know you're very busy, Joe, and people can learn more about you and your law practice by visiting your website, McBrideLawNYC.com. People who want to support the legal defense for Richard Barnett can go to BigOBarnett.com. Tap on Donate Now, and it's going to bring you to the Give, Send, Go page. We can't even get we can get evil treatment, but we can't even get equal treatment under GoFundMe. People can also follow Joseph on Twitter. He is at McBride Law NYC. Joseph, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up today?
Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this issue again. I look forward to coming back to the viewers. Those who have contributed, whether it be with finances or with prayers, I thank you very much. Richard thanks you. His family thanks you very much. We ask for your continued prayers, no matter what your faith is. Please pray for us. Please send your positive energy our way. There is an incredible amount of negative energy directed at my family and myself. I receive death threats every day, hundreds of them. I'll forward you something. I just got this. They were there. As soon as I walked out of the interview, there was 50 of them in my email already. Wow. And look, that's okay to a certain extent, but you got to be strong around the clock. I got to be strong for my clients. I got to be strong for my family. I got to be strong for myself. It comes with the territory, and that's okay. But prayers, the positivity, all of it helps. So please send it our way, send it my way. I'm very, very thankful for it.
Wow, that's amazing and shocking. The death threats. I don't know what to say. I got to thank you, Joseph McBride, attorney defending Richard Barnett, defending the Constitution. It's very important that Crowdsource the Truth viewers visit BigOBarnett.com. Help Joseph defend Richard, defend the Constitution, and stand up to these incredibly well-financed corporate bullies at CNN, IAC, all over the place. Joseph, thanks for joining us again, and thanks everyone for tuning in. You can support this show by becoming a sponsor at subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Major technological update announcement coming very soon. Thanks for tuning in.